12, our final item today, we've got the Resource Recovery bi-monthly report. Here, free to go. Thanks, Leanne. And this morning, so we've got Ross, you're going to present this, are you, today? Yes.
Sorry, I missed that, yes.
Yeah, and we've got Craig Downey from Eco Central, who's going to give us a 10-minute PowerPoint on the new upgrade at the recovery out there. Welcome, Craig. So we'll get you to launch into your presentation first. We'll go on to the report after that. Thank you for your time today.
All right. I've tried to put some notes together that will give you an overview and allow you to dive into the detail on anything that you require. So, look, thank you for the opportunity to provide you the update. I'll give you the overview of the 4 key areas for us at the moment, which are recycling market, what's happening nationally and globally, sustainability, so what we're doing in terms of sustainability, the MRF upgrade project, which everybody probably already well aware of, and I'll touch on waste to energy because it has a part to play. So first of all, the market update, and there's a diverse range of subjects in that, but COVID has impacted the way the world sells recyclables and sells final materials and ships materials. So online shopping has grown exponentially, meaning increased demand for packaging materials, especially cardboard, and recyclable cardboard and fibre is a significant component of that. While Asian fibre mills are demanding more recycled fibre to make packaging, they are tightening the quality controls, which is restricting supply, because sorters like Eco Central are scrambling to meet those quality levels for our existing plant, so hence the upgrade. The original plant, designed and built in about 2009, was designed to meet 10% contamination, and as you may or may not be aware, recycling mills and export requirements now are below 1% in terms of quality demand. So because there's a number of plants that can't meet quality demand, and because there is a higher demand, there is a supply and demand issue, and commodity pricing is high, but only if you can meet the quality. Global shipping was impacted by COVID infections and lockdowns, which affected ports, primarily in China. I think it's, forgive the pronunciation, Yinchang, which is a major import-export hub in China. Was down to about a third capacity for a long time due to COVID illness and lockdowns and limited capacity. So it had a ripple effect throughout the world and ended up with a backlog and slowing global supply and creating the backlogs. Compound the effects of this, which doesn't fit into our shipping cycle, but everybody understands and remembers Evergreen and the Suez Canal blockage. It's a different segment of shipping globally, but it's a bit like a butterfly flaps its wings over here, and the ripple effect. So that is affecting us as well. Combine that with the recent weather event at Littleton, which has put them well behind the 8 ball. It is often a struggle to move stuff overseas, and shipping costs have doubled to tripled in terms of a container. So managing logistics for Eco Central is continuing to be extremely challenging, and it is actually driving, because of the fluctuations and limited capacity, it is driving cost into our business for storing materials to cope with the fluctuations. In the international markets, buyers are required and companies are requiring almost 0% contamination for fibre. They're not taking plastics anymore. It was led by China in 2018 with the national sword, and now all export destinations are tightening their levels. So where for most countries, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, we're at less than 2% is required to them, and some of them are transitioning by the end of this year to less than 0.5% of contaminated material, which means that those markets are closing to us, leaving us predominantly with India as an export market as we transition to the new upgrade. There is no effective market for plastics outside of what we currently do, which is 1s, 2s and 5s. The 1s, 2s and 5s we sell locally, so it's not a concern, although the increased drive to process or reprocess those plastics locally is putting huge demand on the likes of ComSpec and Flight Plastics in Wellington to cope with that volume. They geared up to X amount, but now they're having to cope with 2 to 3 times of that. So there's a congestion in that way, in that issue, which is also driving storage demand. quality and contamination is what drives us to the next point. So to meet the export market demand at the moment, we have applied a second shift at our MRF, employing an extra about 15 to 20 staff and slowed down the plant to extract enough material to meet the quality level. So we're managing to achieve just on 2% contamination out the door, which is just making the market. As I iterated before, the plant is designed to have a 10% final contamination in the finished product. So it's taking 2 shifts, a plant running at about 2/3 of its capability to sort the product to an export quality. It's transitional, so we're having to do this because the market has tightened quicker than we can upgrade the plant. So by the end of next year, the excessive costs and labour and slow running that we're incurring at the moment will have dropped away, but we've got to transition through that project to get there. So it's more important, the point I was going to make there in terms of contamination is that currently the council is supporting our efforts to maintain quality through auditing, through marketing, education, which we're supporting. It's important that the public get the contamination in the yellow bins down to the lowest level possible. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and if we can do it that way and maintain that quality level, then we'll avoid a zero market capability and a need to landfill. So we're putting everything we can into doing that. So I can just reinforce that we need to maintain what we're currently doing. And as I said, local processing, we're currently selling to reprocessors like Comspec and Flight for the plastics. There's no local market for paper or cardboard. We refer to it as fibre. The local New Zealand capacity mills are at capacity at about 250,000 tonnes a year. The majority of their capacity is clean fibre, which comes from commercial premises or cardboard. The dirtiest fibre that they get comes from commingling with recycling, and so it's lowest on their list of what they'll take. So there's about 200,000 tonnes of fibre a year that's exported from recycling. Glass. So we're seeing, over the last couple of years, we've seen a steadily reducing volume being dropped off at our RCs. The volume in the yellow bins is remaining about the same. And there's an increase in the amount of aluminium cans that are coming through. We've got a glass clean-up plant. As you'll be aware, our glass currently is not colour sorted, cleaned up to a degree that is usable in glass aggregate substitute with Fulton Hogan, and there's a small commercial return there. The CRS, which we've been talking to the government about for a number of months, and has also been lobbied by other parties. Once they make that decision on what they're going to do with the CRS, that will inform the infrastructure that I think Canterbury will want to do. Until such time, if we were to jump in and do something to change that and invest money, I think we'd find that there's a risk that we have to redo it again if that infrastructure changes. So we're sort of in a holding pattern. Sustainability. We've completed our carbon footprint and we've identified where our biggest gains can be made. EcoCentral is pretty simple business. Diesel consumption is our largest footprint, and we're also participants in the CCHL sustainability group. So we're always looking at reduction initiatives and operational synergies amongst the group. We're aligning our strategies with the CCHL group of companies, and that way we can make sure we get the best outcomes and we can have group alignment. Our carbon transition process is continuous. So as we address emissions at every project and we consider its impacts in our business decisions, we look at how we can reduce our footprint. So the aim is to always reduce the footprint, which is pretty self-explanatory, but it's important to make that statement. We've already changed a number of implementations, so LED lighting and biodiesel for our fuel. And at the moment, the next purchase, apart from the burnt down loader on the weekend at Sticks Mill, which will be too late to get one, but our next planned loader replacement is wanting to be an electric vehicle. And also the site tugs will be looking to transition those to electric. So we can transition almost all of our fleet to electric. That's a huge carbon saving. The MRF upgrade, so $16.8 million through the COVID Resource Recovery Fund. that will allow us to lift our plant for plastic resins, automatically sorted for 1s, 2s and 5s, or others as we program as they become have value. Its biggest focus is in sorting the fibre to less than 0.5% contamination. So that's through, as you'll see on the display, that's through a number of mechanical sorting, but the biggest focus there is the 8 optical sorters, which are programmable, upgradable, and can work at high speed. So the focus for the staff then will move from being sorters to being quality control and technical operators. At the end of it, at the end of 2022, Canterbury will have the latest technology sorting plant. So the same upgrade, albeit a slightly different design, has been done at the Auckland plant, and they'll come online within months of each other. And between the two plants, that'll cover about 75 to 80% of New Zealand's recycling volume. Part of the thing to remember or to be aware of, I suppose, with the recycling plant upgrade is that by refining the product to a tidy quality will generate more waste if the yellow bin recycling contamination remains at the same level. So logic and numbers say that if you take 3 or 4% more of the waste product out of it, you will add that to the waste. So with that in mind, I think it's important to talk about waste to energy. And I'm not talking about waste to energy on the scale of 300,000 tonnes a year. It sits in the right place above the hierarchy, above landfill. And we're only talking about ensuring that we capture the waste from the sort, from the materials facility, and convert it to electricity. So it's a renewable energy. So we're only talking about 6,000 tonnes a year, a small scale waste to energy plant. It has a transitional position to see us through as the country and the globe moves from manufacturing product from non-recyclable materials to manufacturing product from recyclable materials. So rather than have, as I say, a 300,000 tonne per year plant that needs to be fed for the next 50 years, and you have to find the waste somewhere or whatever it is to feed it, we're talking about a plant that's small footprint, probably twice the size of this room. It would do 5,000 tonnes a year. It would convert it into electricity, which we would use then to power our loaders, subsidise our plant, and it would have a 5 to 7 year lifespan. I think if I was to give a bit of a focused opinion on how long the transition will take for us to go globally to manufacturing from recycled materials, I'd say you'd be looking at 20 years plus to get there. So a 10-year plant that you could either choose to replace or you could choose to look for a better technology at that 10-year plant is a far more pragmatic and logical solution than investing in anything else. The beauty of waste to energy on this kind of footprint is it's scalable. You can size it up or size it down. And at the end of 10 years, it's paid for itself, it's done. All right, you're not committed to find more crap to go on it. All right, the ultimate end is that all the materials are recyclable, we don't have a use for that, and the plant takes care of it. So, I suppose in wrap up, so what I've tried to illustrate to you is that EcoCentral, on behalf of Canterbury residents, is addressing the challenges of COVID and global recycling and the ever-increasing market quality demands. We're continually looking at sustainability measures with a reduction plan in place to address our emissions footprint and support group initiatives. We're building a world-class MRF that Christchurch City Council will own at the end of 2024. And we're demonstrating that there is a strategic case for small-scale waste to energy as we manage the slow transition to product using recyclable material. So that's the overview. I've tried to keep it brief. Thank you. I'm open to any questions.
Thanks very much, Craig. That's awesome. Can we go back to the waste to energy plant? So with that plant,
that's just an example of
what would go in there? For EcoCentral, it would be just the fibre that's of inferior quality?
What it would be the residual waste. So as with the current process, and even before we had to meet such tight demands, the plant would produce between 4,000 and 5,000 tonnes of residual waste as part of its process every year, and that's been going to landfill. What I'm saying is that...
But that would be the cans and the glass and everything would go into
it's like bottle tops, anything that we can't recover from. So residual waste is not the metals. The metals will go and get collected and get recycled with the metal recyclers. It's the tiny little pieces of paper or the tiny little pieces of plastic or the half of a weed eater or those sort of things that people throw out.
Plus any fibre.
Plus any fibre smaller than the side of your fist and plastic size.
Yeah, but plus any fibre that no longer reaches that quality, the export quality. Is that correct? Because the MRF is going to sift that out now, the new one.
So when I talk about quality of the fibre,
Yeah.
it's anything that gets through the entire process to the paper or fibre bale that isn't paper or cardboard based. So because of, let's look at soft plastics is a perfect example of that. So soft plastics continues to be the biggest problem for contamination in paper because it sorts like paper. Right? The optics in the new plant will be able to see that plastic is plastic and it's not paper, but the current plant can't see that.
Right.
So the biggest contaminant is actually still soft plastics that rise in the bin.
And what's your vision with this waste to energy? Is this like you're looking for someone to pick it up and build one? Or are you looking at doing that? Or are you thinking council?
We stick to our core business. We stick to what we're experts in. So what we have been doing is talking to different providers about what solutions they offer. The picture that you can see in the display is from H2 Solutions, which is a company that we've been talking to and is actually working to trial a couple of plants in New Zealand and get them up and running. You know, their plant would handle about 20,000 tonnes a year. 20 tonnes a day, which equates to 6,000 tonnes a year. There are a couple of others, but it is not something that anybody has come forward and been a global expert in. The big waste to energy plants that are built over in Europe, they don't go down to this scale. So you're looking at almost a small scale pyrolysis.
Interesting.
It also has it also has the capability. I know there's different things going through legislation on taking care of tyres. This kind of plant can take shredded tyres as well. So you've got some versatility in terms of its inputs.
Any questions? Phil?
Thanks very much, Craig. Hey, the $16.8 million machine, which is cool, that's really just plastics and cardboard.
It is. 2 million basically is for the plastic side of it. The balance is for sorting the fibre.
So it won't make you know where I'm going to hit with this. It won't make the glass any easier or better or whatever. Would you prefer to not see glass at all and coming in the gate?
I would love not to see glass coming in the gate. The issue, we've presented the case, as you'd be aware before, for what the ultimate solution would be. I think you are unfortunately hamstrung until that CRS decision is made. It's a real problem. But glass is hard on the plant. It was designed for it, but it's high R&M, and it doesn't colour sort. So you end up with a multicoloured glass, which is not what the Visi plant in Auckland wants.
But it must contaminate a little bit somehow your plastic or paper or
Yes. Yeah. Most of the contamination actually takes place in the collection trucks when they compact it. So they drive the glass into the product. Our process loosens all the product so we can sort it, but it's compacted by the time we get it.
Thank you.
And just roughly, how much is one of those?
The business model would be joint venture. So the cost to us would be nothing. There would be a small gate fee between our plant to them, which would be less than landfill, and then they would recover their costs through the combination of the gate fee and us buying electricity back off them. So it's almost like a synergistic or symbiotic relationship. The hope being that it's reasonably cost neutral, but it closes the circle a bit on that out fee.
But would only take your...
We're only designed. Well, The MOU and for all the eco drop sites is that waste goes to Cape Valley. So we can't touch that waste. However, the legal opinion for the waste from the MRF is that we can use that for this plant, which is what we've looked at.
Interesting. So I've got Aaron and then James on Zoom. And Ian?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
it's just Ian, it's not James. No, it's Ian.
update on the CRS, because it seems to just be taking forever. But have you seen any evidence, because I've seen the contrary, but have you seen any evidence to show that it will increase recycling? I've seen models that it'll decrease the amount of actual end product that's recycled. It creates a big money go round, but doesn't have a very good environmental outcome.
So I've only lobbied from the recyclers collective side of it. So that's combination.
So what's their position?
Our position is about not devaluing the current recycled commodities and using the existing recycling infrastructure to work inside the CRS. So we're not trying to grab any control, but what we're saying is that you've already got a lot of existing infrastructure, and it's the collections and the recycling plant and the drops and the resource recovery centres at the drops. Those are all in place, and they are nationally in place. And so talking to David Parker is to understand that you've got other lobbyists. I mean, we're only one small aspect, as you can imagine, but other lobbyists are looking for a complete new system that completely does the whole thing. But you're wasting existing infrastructure. You're driving cost into the country's management of recyclables, and it's not the best solution. And I think the government's problem is that it's struggling with so much lobbying and so much contrary argument. The difficulty is combining all that, finding the truth and the logical solution amongst the chaff and coming up with a plan. And I think the latest advice is around next year, or late next year, or the year after, that they might come up with a plan.
So to make my question slightly clearer, if the economic part aside, like products will get dearer for everyone, including people with not a lot of money, but does that then equate to a better environmental outcome or not? Like, have you seen any model that shows a better environmental outcome by having that CRS system?
I think the environmental income that comes to my mind is the fact that it reduces waste, general litter on the streets. And I think that's the key driver that seems to be common amongst all CRS schemes, no matter what their design is it's not so much, there might be a residual effect of bottles and cans, etc., coming back in and getting recycled, but the biggest upside is that it actually clears litter up off the streets, because there's value in the stuff that people are throwing out.
So the litter that's on the streets?
On the streets, in the bins, just general litter.
And who's collecting that for how much? Because I've seen the amounts, and you'd be working for 1/10 of minimum wage.
It's typically for CRS. I went a brief visit. It was
like homeless people wouldn't bother from the amounts I've seen.
Yeah, they would. Yeah,
you
they would. Yeah. Homeless people. I mean, I wish there was no homeless people, but they would. If they see value, if there's 5 or 10 cents in a bottle sitting on the ground, they will pick it up and collect 10 of them, and they've got $1. All right. The biggest driver and the biggest thing that happens in Australia, Western Australia, is community groups. So scouts, Girl Guides, schools, rugby clubs. They do fundraising by doing bottle drives. Because it'd be good to see some evidence of that, because back when I was a kid and you did a bottle drive, like a Coke bottle's worth 8 cents, and that was like 1/10 of minimum wage. Was like minimum wage wasn't much; it was around $1. So you see where I'm going with this. Yeah, percentage value wise, is it worth it?
It'd have to be, the return value now of a Coke bottle would have to be $2.
Yeah, there's a number of values that have been thrown around through the government in terms of proposals, anywhere from 10 cents to 30 cents.
Yeah, but of the waste that's on the street, because we had someone come in a few years ago that did. They did a whole area, and they did like a waste autopsy thing, and they showed us all, like the worst one was cigarette butts. Like, what's the return value on a cigarette butt, and who's collecting them? I mean, they're the most. So, but there's a whole other. There's an old wrapper. Like, what's a McDonald's wrapper worth? They don't. None of those things have a return value.
No.
So that's the real waste. If you go clean out a creek, there's not a lot of bottles and cans in there.
They're all good points, Aaron, but they're really...
Well,
I agree with you. I couldn't comment on the return value of a cigarette butt, but I understand your point.
If there's a cigarette on it, I do see them get picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a question.
Interesting that a lot of our waste that comes through the plant is generated by people who stick and fill up cans and bottles with cigarette butts. Just for the record.
So I've got a question from Anne.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you. Thank you for that excellent presentation. It would be great to share that with our public, I think, and widely. The yellow bin contamination that you were talking about seems to be a huge issue. Are we doing enough as a council to address that, and is there anything more we can do?
So I glossed over it pretty quickly in my notes. If we compare the contamination now with what it was 12 months ago. 12 months ago, it was about 35% contaminated or rejected loads. Now we're down around 8 to 9%. And all of the efforts from Ross's team and from marketing and the audit team and holding people accountable, which I think is really important, as much as it might be painful for the residents, is making a difference.
We've just got to keep going.
We do have to keep going. We do see interesting spikes in the negativity in the community, nationally, not just here, when you have Delta and the protesting that's going on at the moment. We're seeing suddenly contamination goes up. It's almost in alignment with negative public sentiment and the I don't care attitude, or there's nothing I can do. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just comparing what we're seeing in terms of numbers. When it was quiet and everybody we're making progress and we're doing well done New Zealand, team of 5 million, it was, and the efforts from everybody else, it was coming down. And now that we've come to this Delta scare area, it's starting to climb up again. So, as I say, I'm not a psychologist, but this is just what we're observing. We can't let our foot off the accelerator. If we let our foot off the accelerator, I can't do much more with the plant, right, to take waste out. Right? At the moment, we're just holding our water and we're making the quality level.
Keep going for those gold stars, people.
Yes, please.
Any other questions, Anne?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil?
Sorry, Craig, just have one more. How many tonnes do you get in a year, roughly?
Roughly. Our average was around 50,000 tonnes a year from all sources.
Yeah.
We dropped down in COVID, post-COVID, down to mid-30s, I think it was, in total. And we're starting to climb our way back up again as the recycling comes right from different areas.
Thank you.
The normal activity is about 50,000 tonne a year.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that might be all the questions for you. Oh, Yanni.
Thank you. I guess I was just concerned with the project upgrade. Like, if you had additional capital, is there anything else you'd do in conjunction with the upgrade to get better outcomes?
We're taking the opportunity to do some major R&M while we're doing the upgrade. And the upgrade is taking 8 stages of implementation, because at the same time as doing the upgrade, we have to continue services. For example, the Auckland plant, during their upgrade, are shutting their plant for 3 months and all the recycling is going to landfill. All right, so that's what they've had to do. So Ross talked about pre-sort. We've talked about pre-sort previously. It's something we should look at, but it's not part of the MFE funding. It's not part of this project scope, right?
So you're bound by that scope.
But what's
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're bound by the agreement
Yep.
with MFE.
But if we want to go like to separated glass collection, or we want to take the fibre and put it into organics, isn't the pre-sort kind of like the most important thing?
No, because the problem with glass, if you collect it in the same bin, you've contaminated the glass and you've contaminated the material in the bin.
So the commingling we can stop, and that won't affect the pre-sort. But yeah, but I mean, just in terms of like, what would it cost to do the pre-sort? Why can't we do the pre-sort in conjunction with this, even if we pay for it rather than expect government to pay for it?
Because we don't have the capacity or the design in place to do it at the moment. It's that straightforward. It's taken all our resources plus contracted resources to get this project right, on time, in full, and to schedule. A pre-sort facility, you would have to tip the product somewhere else, pre-sort it, then reload it and bring it to our plant. I'm not saying it can't be done, it's just not something that we can scope to cope with at the moment.
So I guess I'm just worried that we're getting a short-term sort of solution and we don't have a kind of long-term strategic view of the investment going in, because we've got so many other things up in the air at the moment. Does the government, I mean, the government are currently consulting on their waste minimisation strategy. Have they shown no flexibility around this capital investment in terms of coming up with a coherent strategy first before we confirm what we're doing with this funding?
Look, I appreciate that a pre-sort would clean up your product before you got it to the plant, but you would need effectively another plant to pre-sort before you got to a plant.
Right. So has Eco Central considered expanding or looking at alternative venues to get, I guess, a bigger footprint to have that long-term view? I mean, I think it's
in a draft sense, Yanni, in a draft sense, yeah, not to the detailed scope.
Right.
It's not off the table. I'm just saying at the moment we don't have an ability to manage that.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
And
Craig.
just quickly, we also need to understand how the plant performs to understand what kind of pre-sort would be needed.
Right. Sorry, just a final question on this.
Yeah.
Once you put all this equipment in, how movable is it?
Once the plant's put in, how movable is it?
Yeah.
It's not a mobile plant.
You couldn't like relocate it somewhere else.
Yes, you could.
Oh, you could. Yeah.
Yeah, of course you could. You could. It's not welded to the floor. You could unbolt it and move it. What that would take, I don't know. But a greenfield site with a pre-sort facility and all that, I understand what you're thinking there.
Yeah.
Would be great.
That's good. That's
Cool.
good to know.
Thanks.
Right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Craig. I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us, and it was really interesting.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Right, Ross, we'll go on to your report. Have you got a quick introduction or any highlights you'd like to?
Yeah, sure. So look, some of the key points, and I'll go through them briefly. The service delivery review and increased bin flexibility, as you're probably all aware, that's been going on for several months now. We had the beginning of November, just by way of an update, we did present to Banks Peninsula Community Board and Limwood Central Heathcote Community Board around what we were doing there, and it has since gone out public as to have your say and around the bin choices.
Sorry, when does that close again?
When does that close?
It's in here somewhere.
I think it's just gone out this week, so we're running for about a month. Rowan, is it about a month we're running that one?
Out the 15th, finishes on the 5th.
Yeah, 5th December.
Right, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Craig touched on it a wee bit with the recycling contamination. We are averaging around about that 8-9%. We were down to 7% in September, although we have seen that spike back that Craig mentioned, and we're back to 13% for October. So once again, it remains a focus, and we're resourcing that to try and get a better outcome there. The Kerbside collection service, we, in terms of delivering the level of service to the resident, we had a subcontractor come in during September to assist our main contractor, Waste Management, who are having issues with finding resource, particularly in truck drivers. So there's a demand not only throughout New Zealand but globally for truck drivers, and they are struggling to keep those numbers at the required level to meet the level of service required. So we're continuing to work through that with Waste Management. The organics processing plant, the transitional plan we're working through. You'll see there's a photo on page 14 of the report showing the amount of material that has been cleared from the site, and the remainder of that material will be going to the wastewater treatment plant for their planting program, the soil remediation there, and we are aiming to have the Living Earth site clear by mid-December. In terms of looking for other sites, we are continuing to work with Jacobs as the consultant there. In order to make sure we've covered it as best we can, we have put out an RFI yesterday through GETS just to spread the net even further to see, make sure we're not missing any opportunities that may be out there. And the closed landfill remediation, just a bit of an update there since this report. The BECC work, the stage 1 is all but complete, so we've got 2 more stages to work through there. And the Bonds Bay, that work has commenced as well. So we're looking at about a 6-week window there. It's what we've discovered so far is there's quite a bit of material in there. It's deeper than we thought, so it may take a wee bit longer, but we'll just work through that as we go. Thank you. So
with the Bexley, there's the 3 zones there, because we approved that, 2 years ago.
yes.
So we've been waiting for the resource consent, which has just been
So we've all that has come through. We couldn't start anything until we had that approved. So
and then it's going to be completed by December this year.
Stage 1.
Yeah, zone 1.
Yep.
My question is, have we got consent for the other zones as well?
Yes.
Was it all in together?
Yes, all in together.
So that was the long part, wasn't it? And then now the actual.
Yeah, and look, the first zone was perhaps the most critical because that gets the most of the wave action across the estuary, and we have, unfortunately, the cost has increased in there because we've had a lot more erosion during that time, waiting for the consents.
Really?
It was very pleasing to see with the most recent storm event, the work that had been done, and that's the picture on the front page of the report. No more damage there, but beyond that point, we saw some more inundation in there.
Right. Well, that's a comfort that it shows you that the work is going to
It's effective.
be successful. Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other questions on the report? Jimmy?
Thank you. Yeah. The first question on page 205, not 2000, sorry. Handheld battery recycling regarding to those 5 new indoor and 5 outdoor and 7 indoor collection sectors. Where about in Christchurch or is Canterbury region?
Canterbury region, yeah.
How many in Christchurch?
So we've had between 5 and 6 over the last year and a half, which is what we funded as well. We had funding approved through Canterbury Waste Joint Committee and Environment Canterbury and the Sustainability Fund. We look to, part of what we do with the Canterbury Waste Joint Committee is look at projects that we can expand, and that's we're in that expansion phase now. So we have additional funding from MFE that we have, so that'll go out through the Canterbury region.
Yes.
We've also had a lot of interest throughout New Zealand looking at the structure of our program and wanting to adopt that for their own region as well. So it's been very successful in that sense.
Okay, thank you. Second question is the page 206. My question is because you mentioned that due to ongoing concern with the performance existing the contractor now. So we have engaged with subcontractor. 4 weeks just try, but we consider continue. This looks like is the very low performance regarding the contractor. So if next time who will pay? This the kind of subcontractor the cost, and also I'm not sure regarding agreement if that's a less, how do I say? It's a performance whether we have any penalty or not.
Yes, so under the if the question was the payment for the subcontractor, under the contract itself,
yes,
that would get charged back to the current contractor, Waste Management. So those costs that were incurred to provide that level of service by engaging another subcontractor, they were deducted from what we would normally pay through to Waste Management.
Or it's not from council to pay?
No, not our cost. And of course, our focus has been providing that level of service to the resident, because obviously when residents are putting their bins out, they're not getting collected on the collection day.
Yes.
Creates a lot of obviously displeasure for the resident, but then a lot of administration work as well, with calls coming in and then tickets being raised, and then actually making sure that those bins get collected the following day.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Chair, last question.
Don't apologise, Jimmy. Go
Okay,
for it.
yeah. Last one regarding on page 200. You mentioned the kind of staff working with the Environment Canterbury staff on the development of regional data project to support the better regional waste reporting. But my question is that whether it looks like you can have existing, the staff can handle this one. But I remember back to a couple of months ago, the Canterbury management joined the committee. We have to put $80,000 as additional the budget. Try to recruit this technical staff. They can kind of provide or integrate all those information to minimize the waste through the different development the kind of project. Whether this overlap or not, I'm not sure. What's the update status regarding those $80,000? Whether you can recruit new staff or what's the update status?
Yeah, sure. So part of to recruit that person, we needed agreement from all member councils. We had all but one. Have we got?
All the ones are done, I think there's one more to come.
We have one more to come. So majority have supported getting that extra resource, that shared resource. So we just need that other council, which I'm sure Sylvania will be chasing to get their commitment on that. But yes, that position will be able to assist and work with those projects across the region. So it's just that resource that we don't have individually within our own resources within the individual councils.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Any other questions on the report? Anne.
Yeah,
Yes.
good.
Had to wait till you had two hands up.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah, thank you, Ross. I mean, excellent work. I'm just noticing that you had to postpone a lot of community engagement because of COVID. Are you able to revisit those events and continue with that good work?
Yeah, as we can. Yeah, whatever we are able to, we'll continue with that. Yeah.
Sorry, just following on from that, I should know this, but I don't. What kind of engagement do you have with schools, in terms of this type of education with the bins? So
there is separate to resource recovery, we have our learning through action, which is done through a separate unit through council. So they have a couple of programs that they run in schools. Education programs, and that includes visiting some of our processing plants, the organics processing or Eco Central. First on experience with seeing what happens at those facilities, education around wound farms, that type of thing. And the aim there, of course, is to get those kids to take that message back to mum and dad, and hopefully make sure they're doing the right thing as well.
That's great, and it's excellent to see so many people playing that game. They've been a good game. It's obviously really becoming quite effective. Yes, and look, we just on the education, the more we engage and going back to the contamination, we feel there's a sector that we haven't been able to reach, and we're looking at going into malls, supermarket type areas, so we can have that face-to-face engagement with those who may not have access to technology, computers, that sort of thing, and that's a sector that we want to engage with. And to your
first question, yes, we've had to delay some of that until we've been able to get back into those face-to-face situations.
Thanks so much.
I think that's a really good idea to go out to supermarkets. You could have a stand outside and just with the yellow bin, and because no matter how much you think you know, every now and then you go, oh, actually, hang on, can that one or not? And we have great discussions in my house every now and then on something, and then you go online and have a look and see if you can or can't. So I think, that's a really good idea to go out to supermarkets.
Yeah, we've identified it's really great getting the numbers back through the marketing and the research and understanding, what areas we may not be reaching, and being able to work out a plan on how to perhaps get to those. And look, we'll just monitor that, see what engagement we get, and if it works, great. If not, we'll try something else.
You have a question, Aaron, or do you want to
I'll
move
just reaffirm that in the bit about the children passing on to the adults. Like in our household, probably the 6-year-old's the smartest on the yellow bin.
Wouldn't take much.
on the yellow bin?
On the yellow bin, Phil. Just jeepers. So just reaffirming that the messages that young children take through to households is fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Sarah?
Just one very quick question on as on Radio New Zealand in the last week or so as well. The plastic plant pots, they're often number 5s, but they're actually not accepted even though they've got the number 5 symbol on them, and they're supposed to go in the red bin. And I know that some residents have been finding that confusing because the number's right.
Yeah.
So while contamination of those ones is potentially an issue because of the soil and things on them, we ask people to clean any food out of containers before they put them in the bin. I'm just wondering why we're not asking people to do the same with garden pots.
Yeah.
I know that Mitre 10 has just started accepting them so that Zealandia can recycle them, but it just seems a misalignment and the messaging isn't that clear.
Yeah, you're right, and it's difficult, and it's possibly one Craig could have answered. It's around the capability and the sorting of the plants. So.
Okay.
Sorry, you're still here.
Craig, come up to the table because you need the microphone. But that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I can't commit to anything we're doing. That's not what I was going to say, but I have probably about 4 months ago had a meeting with the CE of odorants. So it is something that they're looking to trial. So as we progress, returning of pot plants to and things like that to the plant places is something that they are actively looking at, and we're actively working with them on how that might look. So we're just not publicising it because nobody's committed to anything.
Yeah. It's just that with the number 5 on all the pots, because they are actually recyclable.
Yep. So they're PP, exactly.
But they have to be clean. That's the key.
But we don't accept them even if they're clean.
We don't.
We don't. Not in the yellow bin. No, that's
shouldn't have. Oh, okay, right.
So,
and that's because of the plant, the way
the plant's not designed to take containers of that size. And they're classed as a rigid plastic. We just can't sort it. And it's about understanding that the plant isn't mostly automated.
Okay,
plant.
so it's more about the plant than the the soil and stuff.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So looking at other vehicles to accept that is on the cards, but
so some of those plant pots are quite big, but some of them are most of them are only yogurt container size.
But the best place for them to go back to is to get, if we think about it, is reuse rather than recycle. Yeah. So it's the top of the hierarchy. So that's why we're encouraging the odorines and that sort of thing to take them back, and they want to do that. That's just how they do it.
And Sarah, did you say Mitre 10 are starting one, or did you?
Yeah, Mitre 10 are now collecting them, and they've got an organisation. They've teamed up with Zealandia, who are actually going to melt them down and remake them.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's progressing further.
Yeah, it's recycling.
I haven't had a lot of follow up since that meeting, but it sounds like they're progressing within their own industry to accommodate it.
There'll be a ton of those. Aaron, have you got? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, Mitre 10 also polystyrene, so they're quite proactive and be able to recover those materials. Thank you.
So Aaron, have you got a last quick question?
Oh no, Sarah stole my thunder. Mitre 10 emailed me last night to say bring back your containers. So.
Great, thank you. I'm just conscious of time, so Jimmy's moved this. Do I have a seconder? I'll go Sam this time, so we've been down that corner. Is there any other discussion? It's a really good report, thank you, and thanks for presenting it so well. And also thank you for the pictures in there. It's really good. I mean, looking at Allendale there, you can really see in the landfill there how the erosion is really a serious problem there. So the photos actually are really great to see. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
we'll
for
keep
that.
those coming then. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll put that the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you, Aaron.
Okay.
Let's do the closure. Te kuna te wairua ki riri ki te taumata. Ko te matatika matapono ki arahi ina mahi. Ka auratahi ki tira kia iki punuku, kia iki tangaroa. Home e, hui e, tai ki e.
Aye.
Kia ora, thank you everyone.